Welcome to the Hash It Out Show. I am your host, Jared JB Boyd. And once again, we got another preview show ready for you guys as we will talk about the Bayou area high school football teams. I'm joined by my co-host, the one, the only, VK Jones. What's up, VK?
What's going on, everybody? And welcome. Like, tag, share, and subscribe to the Hash It Out Show on all social media platforms. And watch the show on YouTube, Facebook, and I'm hoping we're on Instagram tonight. I hope we're trying that again. So if we're on Instagram, welcome. But at the same time, we appreciate you joining us. We're continuing our previews this week. This is our last show for this week, and we will continue next week with our high school football previews. We're getting close to the 2023 season.
Most definitely. Let's get into it. Our special guest, this guy, sports writer. He was with the Houma Courier. He's joining us today to give us all the details about the Bayou area teams. The one, the only, Chris Singleton. Chris, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, guys. How about you? Look like you guys got a great show here and a lot of interaction and following going on. So I appreciate you guys having me on. And the season's getting closer, and everybody's excited about it.
Oh, very excited. I just can't wait. I know VK can't wait. We got a lot of plans in store for this season. But let's get into these Bayou area teams. I want to start off with District 8-3A, and that is E.D. White. E.D. White, the past couple years have been pretty far in the playoffs. What can you tell us about E.D. White?
Yeah, I mean, every year. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and almost every year I've been doing this in the Houma Thibodeau area. E.D. White has had a strong team. I mean, they've either made the playoffs or won a playoff game, so definitely the consistency of the program is first and foremost the most important thing. And that's pretty impressive considering, they play a very, they're a little smaller private school, but, they're not afraid to play public schools, and they their schedule is usually pretty loaded with a lot of good non-district teams. But E.D. White definitely the last couple of years have been taking it up a level. 2 years ago, they made it to the state championship game for the first time in a long time and lost a very close game to U-High. And last year, they made it to the semifinals and lost to St. Thomas More, a very, good game at the beginning, but at the end, they just couldn't keep up with, the offense of St. Thomas More, which was one of the best. And everybody saw that in the Superdome last year. But E.D. White definitely is going to have a really good team again this year, I think. And even though they've lost some players on that defense has been phenomenal the last 2-3 years. And, they've been holding offenses, limited amount of points scored and rarely give up a lot of touchdowns in the last 2 or 3 years. But they lost a lot of good players on that defense for last year's team. But they're returning 7 starters this year on offense and 3 on defense. And, they got some really good running backs and Jeff Dietrich, who had over 1,000 yards, and really good receiver, Paxton LaFont. And, E.D. White's going to be okay. They just do what they do best. They run the ball. They got a big offensive line. They play good defense. They're able to match up with you despite not maybe having a lot of speed, but they do have some fast guys. Paxton LaFont's one of them. And last year they had Matt Malonzo, one of the fastest in our area. So a lot of people underestimate them. They go into the game and they say, "Oh man, this is E.D. White. We can stop that run. We can beat up their offensive defensive lines." But after 4 quarters, they put it on you. So E.D. White's gonna be good again. I don't know if they can win a state championship because they lost a lot and they got a lot of new players coming in, but they're gonna be in the mix for district championship. And I expect to see them in the quarters, semifinals, and maybe, like you said, he could make it back to the state championship. You never know. But never count on E.D. White and that coaching staff. Kyle Assign, those guys are good. They very rare would you have an E.D. White team that's not prepared on a Friday night. Those guys, they prepare those guys. They scheme against you. They know your weaknesses. They know your strengths. They know how to exploit it, and that's why they've been good all these years.
E.D. White is in a district with Patterson, St. James, Donaldsonville, and Berwick. I think it's safe to say that this district championship can come down between E.D. White and St. James. Do you think E.D. White has what it takes to once again become district champions this year?
Well, let me start off again. Like you say, everybody looks at this district and they think it's E.D. White and St. James, and traditionally, yes, that's the factor. But you look at last year. Last year, they had 4 teams out that district that made it to the semifinals. You had St. James, you had E.D. White, you had Patterson. Well, not the semifinals, the quarterfinals. Patterson and Berg both made it to the quarterfinals, and that was huge in St. Mary Parish. A lot of people overlook the St. Mary Parish team, but Patterson and Berg had great years last year, and I know both of those teams may have lost some weapons from last year, but Patterson's traditionally pretty good. Barrett, Coach Mike Walker, he's got that program up and running now with some good programs, but overall, at the end of the day, it comes down to St. James and E.D. White traditionally, and St. James, last year was very explosive. Also, they may have lost their key running back, Caden Williams, and they may have lost Kai Prions, who's the LSU commit. But St. James is, I like to call them a mini program on the river, a mini college program on the river, because they know how to reload every year. And, they got another good caliber of weapons. Again, they got a good quarterback, Braden Williams, a good receiver, Kobe Brown, who may be one of the most underrated players in our area coming into this year. But Kobe Brown is pretty good, caught over 1,000 yards last year. It's going to come down to E.D. White and St. James. I think the game's in Vacherie this year. It's a rivalry game. It's a big game. If I had to pick, I would say I would give the nod maybe to E.D. White, just because, they're E.D. White right now, but I would not be surprised by the midpoint of the year. St. James just gets better and better as the season goes on. It's going to be a clash at the end, and it's going to be a great game like always. But if I was to say right now, before any practices or any games are played, I would say, I would give a small nod to maybe E.D. White, just because, traditionally they're good, but St. James has the athletes to match up well against E.D. White, and that's going to be a great game end of the year, no doubt.
I want to ask you about Patterson, new head coach coming in with a bunch of talent. Can Patterson make some noise again this season?
Patterson's going to always make noise because they got some really hidden weapons over there. Now, the key, like you said, would be the coaching changes. I mean, unfortunately, I think the last 2 years that they've lost their head coaches to other programs, and they lost Coach Lockhart, I think, to Burr Bridge 2 years ago, and last year they lost Coach Kramer to Lafayette. But Patterson, I know they lost some weapons last year, and I was watching them last year when they played Port Allen and even in the playoffs, and those guys are really good, and they got some really good talent, on that roster that we haven't seen yet. I know they lost Howard Kinchin, who had ridiculous numbers last year. I think over 2,000 receiving yards. They can throw the ball well last year. But the key for them is going to be staying healthy, and if the new coaching staff can, get them together and, stay focused. And like you say, whenever you lose a coach, this late in the ball game, it's a lot. There's only 12 months of the year. You're working throughout the year, but if you lose a coach this close to the season, it kind of resets things a little bit. But I don't know. We have to wait and see how good they can be. But there's always talent there, and Kenny Hilliards and all those other guys come from that program. I'm from Morgan City, so I know firsthand what kind of program Patterson is, and you just got to watch out for the Jacks, because they're always going to be competitive.
Before I pass it on to VK Jones, I want to ask you about District 75A. Of course, this district has been dominated by Destrehan for the past 5-6 years. But it looks like to me, head coach Tyler Lewis might have Terrebonne on the right track, the right part of the track with what he's doing. And a lot of talk has been about Terrebonne, especially with Colin Billiard, the wide receiver who just committed to LSU. What can you say about Terrebonne this year?
Well, Terrebonne, you mentioned Tyler Lewis. I've known Coach Lewis for a while, and he comes from a very strong football background. He played at West St. John, and he's a River Parish guy. He's bounced around as some head coaching staffs at St. James, and he was Terrebonne previously when they had some good teams as an assistant coach, and he's been around for a while, and he has some good knowledge in him from all those programs. especially when he was at St. James with Coach Valdez, and he's a West St. John guy. I think he was a part of their last state championship as an assistant coach. So he's been around good talent. He knows how to play. And Terrebonne, I would say the last 5 or 6 years, I've had some really good athletes come through that program, and there's a lot of excitement. Coach Tyler, going into his second year, has really got that community involved and excited about football. And you mentioned Kylan, but he's a great athlete, great physical athlete, probably one of the most physically talented, good hands receivers that we will have in the Bayou region this year. But that Terrebonne roster has a lot of good players on it, and that you haven't even named yet, and maybe you haven't even known or saw yet. But that's what's gonna make them good. Across the board, they got probably one of the fastest guys in the area, and Alvin Celestine, they call Jay down here, and he has commitment. He has offers from McNeese, Arkansas, Troy. He's fast, man. He's probably one of the top 2 fastest guys in the Houma area, I would say right now. And once he gets the ball in space, good luck. He reminds me a lot of Jalen Lucas, and when Jalen was down here, very fast, good hands, and if he gets open space on you, he can take it to the house. And you mentioned, like you say, Kylan is a good receiver, but they got another really good receiver too, Quincy McKay, another big guy who can catch, and he has some good speed. They got another good running back in Jace Johnson, who had over 1,000 yards last year. They have some big guys up front and on the defensive line. Also, Tydrick Stewart and Taylor Bingham. Those guys are pretty talented on the defensive line. They're big, but the grand scheme of things, Terrebonne, I think they have the talent, to win at least 5, 6, 7 games this year, which would be amazing, which would be pretty good for Terrebonne. Everybody's expecting them to win 10 games, 9 games. That'd be nice too. But like you said earlier, the big question is can they catch up with the big River Parish Powers and the Destrahans and the Hornbills and East St. John's? Those 3 programs are really good. They got a lot of talent. I think Terrebonne, if one of those teams slip up, I think Terrebonne has the talent to, beat them on Friday night. It's just going to come down to if Terrebonne can stay healthy and if they can stay focused and if the coaches can keep those guys together. But Terrebonne, I would say the last 10 years, they about 90, 80% of the time, they have a winning team. Like you see, they look at the talent that they put up. Mason Smith, Jalen Lucas, Ja'Kai Douglas. Terrebonne, they can hold their own. Maybe not with the Destrahans, but they're right there, And so Destrahan's going to be good again this year. Bill's moving up. East St. John's good. Terrebonne kicks with them if they can stay healthy and just stay focused. And like you say, who knows what can happen on any given Friday night in that district. I like to call it the SEC West of the, Class 5A ranks because they're, it's so strong every night, And but Terrebonne, there's Coach Tyler Lewis and his staff has done a good job bringing that community together, and I expect a lot from them this year.
Well, Chris, man, it's good to have you on the show. You've been in the trenches for a long time out in the Bayou. Gotta ask you about Thibodaux. What do they have this season? And also tell us a little bit about HL Bourgeois. Can either of these programs compete in this tough district?
Yeah, well, Thibodaux obviously has a new coach this year, Dre Trosclair, and he's a familiar name from around, especially South Louisiana. He's the Evie White guy, and he's bounced around a lot. Winning program at Ascension Catholic, and he went to Plaquemine for a year last year. So Coach Trosclair knows how to, win. He took Ascension Catholic to the Dome one year in the past. So, but Thibodaux is like Terrebonne. They have talent there, and I think one of the issues the last couple of years was just that, injury-wise, they couldn't stay healthy. They had some depth issues, and and now I think that with Coach Trosclair there, they have a young team. They have a lot of young talent. Look, last year I taught middle school in Lafourche Parish in Thibodaux, and I got a chance to watch a lot of middle school football. And a lot of these kids who played in middle school football where I was at, are now going on to Thibodaux, and I can tell you they got a lot of great young talent. It's Thibodeau right now. So even if they don't win, like, more than 5 games this year, right for them. They got some really good talent. They got a really good linebacker, Rashad Jackson, and a cornerback, Kamon Fultz, who just committed to North Alabama. And, even though they lost 2 of the big weapons last year, Ian Rodrigue, the quarterback, and running back, DeMarcus Singleton, they got some weapons that can definitely fit in. Can they compete with Dexter Hands and Hornbills? It may be a year or 2 away, but you can't count out Thibodeau on any given night. That community just loves that program, and they're going to inspire those young men to, play every night, and if you go into Thibodeau expecting an easy fight, you're gonna be shocked, because those guys, they're not gonna give up. And you mentioned HL. HL is definitely another rising program in the Bayou. And even though they didn't make the playoffs last year, I just think that they just a lot caught up with them at the wrong time of year. They were in some games and they just couldn't close it out. But they have some really good talent at HL, one of the biggest schools in the Bayou area. And Coach Sterling Washington has done a good job. He's got a good staff there, and 2 names to keep an eye out for HL. Tyron Winslow, a big 6'6", 275-pound defensive lineman, and Kentra Lacey, who's on the offensive line. So they got some beef on the lines in the trenches, and they got a really good receiver, Brody Hebert, a good running back, Malik Miles, and quarterback Connor Wallace, and they got some beef up front. So the key is, if they can get some, those skill guys to help out, I think they can stay in a couple of games in district plays. And like you say, Thibodeau and HL, Terrebonne, they're always going to go at each other. And now the key is if they can just hang in there with those river programs, and even Central Lafourche. Central Lafourche shocked some people, even though they didn't win much last year, but they were right there in a lot of those games, and they were able to get some wins and end the long losing streak. So, the Bayou in 7-5A, it might not win state championships, but I expect them to have, good competitive seasons this year.
Let's talk about District 7-4A. We know that this district is definitely ruled by Lutcher, but everybody else, it might be a mad scramble maybe this year for second place. I know Vanderbilt Catholic's returning a lot of people. South Lafourche might be interesting, but also Morgan City and Aaron Meyer going into year number 2. So tell us a little bit about that district and the teams that can compete, but not just that. Who wins the district?
Well, you start off with Letcher. Letcher's a good program. They're going to be good again this year, even though I know the teams in that district are happy that Winfield's gone. I think he's at UL now. And, that guy was amazing. And he's probably the best offensive weapon I've seen across the state last year. And, and he was a good reason why they won the state championship. But, Lutcher, I think, is still going to be at the top, but like you mentioned, they got some really good programs. Vanderbilt, you can never count out Vanderbilt, man. Vanderbilt, it's just like E.D. White. Vanderbilt always has a good team. Most people underlook them, think they're, too good. But, that program, Coach Tommy Minton, who's a proven winner no matter where he's been, whether it was Patterson or Central Catholic, he went right there to Vanderbilt the last 2 years. They made the playoffs and won some playoff games. And Vanderbilt has probably one of the best weapons, in my opinion, one of the best weapons in the state, in Jalen Coleman at running back. And if you haven't heard of Jalen Coleman, you really shouldn't be watching high school football, because this kid is next level good. And, he just can make weapons. Last 2 years, freshman year, sophomore year, he's run for over 1,500 yards and over 20 touchdowns in each one of those years. And, he's a good receiver. And, you think you can stop him, but when you get on that field, he can just, hit it. He has that home run capability to score from anywhere on the field. And he's so fast. He has a lot of offers too. Texas A&M, Mississippi State are some of those programs that are really after him right now. And, I tell all my, at the end of every year, we go into LSWA all-state meetings, and I tell all these other sports writers across the state, man, when this kid is a senior, he's probably going to be one of the top ranked recruits in Louisiana. I guarantee it, because if he can stay healthy and just get better every season, he's definitely someone that's going to be highly recruited. Trust me, if y'all don't know him yet, y'all gonna know him in the next 2 years. But this year, he's you can't count out Vanderbilt. And they got some other good players too. Chase Laurent.
Can you say that name one more time? That running back you just mentioned, because somebody asked that question, because they must have didn't get the pronunciation.
Jalen Coleman.
And he's a track guy too. Won the 200 meters this year.
Yeah, he won a state championship at the state track meet in the 200, and he's a 3-sport athlete. Plays basketball. He's probably one of the best basketball players in the area. But Jalen Coleman, his dad is the girls basketball coach at Vanderbilt, Geauxtigers Coleman. They're short, but man, he's so strong, he's so physical, and he's fast. But Jalen Coleman, if you've never seen him play, go on my Twitter account, Courier Chris, and just type in, search Jalen Coleman, and you'll see all the videos that I captured of him scoring touchdowns from the sidelines. And wow. Sophomore last year, so he has 2 more years to go, and definitely be on the lookout for him.
Now, I gotta ask you this more than anything else, before I get this back to Jared. Besides the Bayou with the football and everything else, this year has been a big time banner year for athletics in the Bayou, not just with football, basketball, and baseball. You're looking at Berg winning the state championship. You're looking at almost the entire Highway 90 in the top 28. I have never seen that before, and some great competition and everything else. And what were your thoughts on a big banner year out, besides football, that athletics really rose in the Bayou Parish?
Yeah, especially, well, everybody looks at football, but basketball and baseball over the years have been pretty strong. Ellender won the top basketball programs from down here. Thibodeau High, they won a state championship basketball 2019. Baseball, the last 2 years we've had South Terrebonne, Vanderbilt, and Edie White win state championships. But football's the king, and football in the Bayou area, I'm just talking about Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish, haven't had a state champion since 1991 when South Terrebonne and Thibodeau won it. And we also consider St. James in our area too. Even though they're on the river, they're right there in our reach. So St. James is there. They won a state championship in football the last couple of years, and we've always had great talent down here. And the key has always been just keeping them down here. Obviously, the Hurricane Ida 2 or 3 years ago changed a lot, and a lot of great talent left the area. You had, Jalen Lucas went there to New Orleans, and that's just one of many. But a lot of the programs are still reeling from that. Ellender, they're going to have to rebuild their school. South Terrebonne, South Lafourche, they took some really hard hits from the Hurricane, and they're just still rebounding. So, but we've always had talent here, and the key has just been keeping them together and getting the coaching in place to help lead these talented players. And I'm glad that the area and the state are now starting to recognize the Bayou region. And you see what Edie White's been able to do. They put it on the map. St. James, they put it on the map. Terrebonne, with all these great athletes going to major Division I programs, they put it on the map. Thibodeau. So it's inspiring to see. And these are some of the most loyal hardcore fans that you will ever meet. You go to a game at Thibodeau, the stands are most likely packed. And South Lafourche, those programs those fans support those programs, and the fans are a big part of the success. And hopefully we can continue to see it. Even the smaller programs you might not heard of, Houma Christian, Covenant Christian. We got some small 1A teams, that we haven't talked about here yet. Central Catholics, and you go into St. Mary Parish, Morgan City, Berg, Patterson's. It's just that we have a lot of great programs here, and I hope that as the years go on, that the area continues to put the resources and the money in to help these programs meet their full potential, and so they can Dexter Hands, the Hornbills, all those other great programs from across the state, the Zacharies or whoever, whenever they get to state championship competition.
All right. VK, I'm gonna pass it on to GP, George Peppers. George Peppers, what's going on?
Not too much. Chris, first off, thank you for taking the time for joining us tonight. And I'm a little late to the party, but my first question to you, sir. You got a lot of proud programs down there in the river parishes in the Bayou. I want to focus on one that has had a precipitous, in my opinion, a precipitous fall. A team that has once been considered elite, but in football has not gotten back to that status. Let's talk about Honville and why they've fallen from the ranks of the top tier programs in uh in the river parishes. The one rivalry people would lean on was Honville Destrehan in football. That was a must see game. The last few years it hasn't been that. Honville's program has obviously slid back. Talk about why they've slid, and are they a team to look for to make any kind of progress this year?
You mean as far as competing with Destrehan's?
Pretty much actually to compete more than it really to beat them. I mean, it's asking a lot to beat Destrehan, but to actually compete with them and show up and be on the same field for 48 minutes.
Well, I mean, Destrehan is just traditionally, I mean, a really good program. I mean, with the Ed Reeds and all those other guys from there throughout the years, and um, it's good to see them compete again and win those state championships. But as far as them against the Bayou programs, we're just talking about football. But
Mhm.
when you look at the resources that Strahan has compared to some of the other resources, maybe from some of the Bayou programs, it's just not there yet. A lot of that's dealing with, I mean, financial, restraints, I mean, the Bayou compared to the river. I mean, Destrehan community really supports that program. And, but when it comes to sports, it comes down to natural born athletes. They have really good resources there in Destrehan to develop those athletes and get them to the next level. And, it's just, the gap is still there, but I think it's starting to decrease a little bit. Hopefully within the next 10 years, you'll see it all even far. But, Destrehan is just, a really good program across the board. They got good fans and they got good support, and no knock on them at all. They're strong every year, and they're gonna be strong again this year. But it's going to take some time, for the Bayou team to be able to compete with them every year.
The River Parishes obviously had a banner 2022, winning 3 football state championships in the Caesar Superdome. I want to focus on which player do you think would be more missed in the Bayou? Mostly a guy like a Jai Eugene of Destrehan or Winfield from Lutcher. In your opinion, from last year, singularly, who is the best player, and who do you think which player will be the most missed for you to cover down in the river parishes in the Bayou?
Well, for most part, I'm a Bayou guy, so I usually stick with around the Bayou. But I see the river whenever they come into the
Sure.
Bayou region. But as far as just the Bayou, I mean, if you're looking at with programs, I think that are going to be the best this year. Edie White is definitely up there. St. James, even though they're considered a river school, I include them in my Bayou schools too. But Edie White, St. James, definitely you got to look at those two. Vanderbilt, those programs are in the mix. I think they can hold their own and make an interesting game against a lot of those river parish schools. It's just a matter if they can stay healthy and if they can just make it for the full 10-game stretch, and I think they can have a good season.
Uh, one of our commenters is saying that Edie White's his favorite team, and that's one of mine too. I mean, they play throwback football down there. Carlosine has done a monster job with the Cardinals, and they've been close to winning a state title. Of the 3 reigning state champions, Destrehan, St. Charles, Lutcher, Which of the three do you feel like is the most likely to get back to New Orleans this year of the three that won it last year?
I would say it comes down to those two again, Edie White and St. James. Um, you know, they have consistency with them. The coaching staff, yeah, they lose players every year, but they're able to plug in a lot of young players, and they can scheme, they can match up against you. They put the game plan, and then St. James, they were right there with Manny last year, in I think semifinals.
Yes, they
And
were.
so they got a really good program. Coach Davis has done a good job with St. James, keeping that going. Um, you know, it's just going, like I say, it's going to come down to health. They may not have the number of 5-star athletes that you might get used to seeing in Superdome every year for the state championship, but they got good, strong programs. They got good, hard kids who put in the work every night. And um, from the Bayou region, I would say the best two chances I think can make it to the Superdome would definitely be Edie Wright, St. James, Vanderbilt. If Jalen Coleman breaks out again this year, Vanderbilt, if they get a good draw in that bracket, they can make a run too. But you never know. Any given year, you're going to see somebody step up. But we might not have all of the big strong programs like New Orleans or Baton Rouge or Lafayette has that puts 3 or 4, if their schools in the dome every year. But I think we have 2 really good strong programs, Edie White, St. James, that can definitely make it to the dome if they can stay healthy and just stay focused and get the right matchup in the playoffs.
All right, my last question before I turn it over to our esteemed host, Terrebonne, the Tigers. Team has teased a lot, and they've got some really good talent. Seems like they got a lot coming back. Young coach, or a hungry coach. Talk about the Tigers and what expectations do we have from Terrebonne this year as it relates to potentially them maybe getting into the argument to get to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Well, Terrebonne is definitely, that's what you're talking about, Terrebonne, right? Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Terrebonne, like the last 10 years, they've had, really good teams. And Coach Tyler Lewis has definitely done a good job of getting those guys to, you look at the videos that they post on Twitter. I mean, they are always in the weight room, working out there in the community, doing great things. The best thing that Coach Lewis has done there is he has just united that program, and he's brought them together, and he has those kids believing. And Coach Tyler Lewis, he's won state championships as an assistant coach at St. James and West St. John, so he knows what it takes to get to the Superdome. Now, can they make it to the Dome? I'm never going to say never. And I want to see them make it to the Dome. I want to see the Bayou team, especially a 5A team, make it that far. Like I said, they got the weapons. Kyle and Billiard, YJ, Ty Derek Stewart. I mean, they really got some really good athletes in that program. And it's just going to be a matter if they can just, when the spotlight is on, when they play against those Destrahans and those Hornbills or whoever they play in the playoffs, if they can make the big plays when they need to make it. And if they can do that, they can hold their own against anybody in the state. But, this is a good Terrebonne program. Everybody thinking Terrebonne just popping up. But Terrebonne, the last really good kids. Mason Smith, Ja'Kai Douglas, Jalen Lucas, they've had good programs. They had teams. I remember one year, I think, just within the last 5 years, they had, they went 9-1 and, only lost to Destrahan and Giants, and was in the quarterfinals. They've had good programs. They're not a sleeper. Everybody thinks Terrebonne is a sleeper, but, if you go into Tom B. Smith Stadium on a Friday night, look, think you're going to just run over those guys, you could be in for a rude awakening. But I don't know if they can make it to the Dome yet. That may be a year or two away, but I like to see it happen. But it's going to be a work in progress. But Coach Tyler Lewis has definitely got those kids believing, and he has that program and that community talking football now. It's going to be a fun year in Houma. If y'all can get down and watch a game with your own eyes, definitely do so, because it's going to be exciting football in Terrebonne Parish.
Chris, I want to go to District 9-2A first. Houma Christian. Now, this district is spread out from their location in Houma all the way to Port Sulphur with South Plaquemines. Houma Christian, Fisher, Jefferson Rise, South Plaquemines, Thomas Jefferson, and Cohen. What are the chances that Houma Christian can make a run, not only for the district championship but also the playoffs?
Well, Houma Christian is definitely the last couple of years they've been building that program up, and they were still a 2A school, but they were in that district with the Lafayette programs. A lot of big public schools like Franklin and Laurelville, and they were just overmatched by the depth and the talent of those programs. As a small private school, it's sometimes you may just have at least 20, 22 players or something, and you're going against teams with 30, 40, 50 kids, and they got the resources to, have kids, depth all over the field, and they just couldn't compete with those guys. And now I think this year they're starting to turn around. They have a new coach, Jamar Celestine, who is a former Terrebonne offensive coordinator just last year. He's moved over to Houma Christian, and they have some good players there. I was just talking to him just yesterday, and some guys who play both ways. They have to play both ways because it's a small program. Joseph Landry is an athlete. Ethan Prejean, he's a good nose guard and tackle, and Brady Marcel, quarterback. You may not know any of these guys I'm calling out, but I think they can compete now with those New Orleans schools in 2A. With the Thomas Jeffersons. I mean, traditionally, even before they moved into that Lafayette area district. Before that, they were in that New Orleans district, so they're not unfamiliar with those programs. But I think Houma Christian is a team that can win 3, 4, 5 games if they can just stay healthy. Like I said, they got the small numbers, of course, but they got some athletes that can play both ways. And as far as winning district, it may not be capable this year, but as Coach Celestine continues to develop that program, they have a lot of good young freshmen and sophomore athletes. So you're going to be seeing a lot of progression over the next 2-3 years. When we have this conversation again 3 years from now, I expect them to definitely be one of the top teams in the district, making the playoffs and possibly winning playoff games and everything. But Coach Celestine, he's a good coach, and he coached a lot of those big name athletes I just mentioned from Terrebonne the last couple of years. So he's bringing that scheme and that system into Houma Christian, and I expect Houma Christian, their fans, they're building that program up, and hopefully the next couple of years they'll definitely see the benefit of their hard work.
District 8-2A, you got Franklin and West St. Mary in the district with Ascension and Episcopal, Catholic New Iberia, Del Cambray, and Laurelville. Talk about this district a little bit.
Yeah, like we just mentioned, luckily for Houma Christian, they're out of it now. They're in another one. But Lafayette area is just so big with the talent right now. I mean, you mentioned Catholic New Iberia, you mentioned Laurelville. Those are teams that usually make deep playoff runs, make it to the Superdome every year, and they're established programs. Franklin, the last couple of years, has made runs. They've won some playoff games, but just couldn't get over the hump against some of the powerhouses in that Class 2A bracket. West St. Mary, I think they're still rebuilding that program up a little bit. With Franklin, Rashawn mentioned it earlier, as far as the success that we've had down here along that Highway 90 corridor, Franklin has definitely had a lot of success with football and basketball in particular. Last year, in the last couple of years, so Franklin has a lot of talent walking those halls. It's just going to be a matter if they can just keep those guys disciplined and keep them focused. And they've been in some big games, and if they can just put it together for 4 full quarters, and a lot of that plays a role into it. As far as winning state championships, I don't know about that, but I think they can make the playoffs, and they can. It's hard when you're going up against those Ascension Episcopals and Catholic New Iberias. I think it takes a lot, but they've been able to. Even Laurelville's had a really good program. I watched Laurelville last year against St. James in the playoffs, and I was surprised by what they were able to do. So they play some really good football in that part of Highway 90 going towards Lafayette. And, I think Franklin still has, the capability of making it to the 2A and, just making it to the playoffs, winning the playoff game or two. That'll mean a lot for that program.
VK, you got a question for Chris Singleton?
Well, Chris, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, you talked about before about the talent and everything else in the parish and all that good stuff and everything. Tell us about an underdog team in that region that you think that could maybe surprise some people in that Bayou Parish area?
Yeah, we have a couple, and I always right now I would put Edie Rice St. James as 1 and 2 in no particular order in the Bayou region right now, and then right after that is just so you can call it a mix of teams that are capable. Terrebonne, obviously, but if there was one team I would think that you need to keep your eye on, obviously we mentioned HL earlier, HL Bourgeois. They made the playoffs 2 years ago. They have a lot of momentum going, and they've done a lot of great things, and they got some kids in that program that can play on the next level. I mentioned Tyron Winslow and Kensha Lacey. And one team we haven't mentioned is in the 1A ranks, and Central Catholic in 1A ranks. I was hoping we'd get there after 2A, but 1A.
I'll tell you, that was my next question. I didn't want to just ask too many questions and not get to
Yeah.
but that is my next question, that 1A district, yes.
Yeah, but Central Catholic is another team that you can keep your eye on. They got some really good players there. Central Catholic is a smaller version of Edie, but in my opinion, they're good every year. Some good weapons. Tylen Hollins is a really good defensive back, and Ben Case as a quarterback. I think they were just right there last year against Vermilion Catholic, and I think that district went down between both of those programs, and Vermilion was just too strong for them at the end. But Central Catholic is definitely a program that's you can believe can make the playoffs and win a playoff game. Covenant Christian, they got a new coach, Jesse Turner, who was previously at Ellender. Last year Ellender had a great year. If not for Letcher, Ellender wins that district. People don't remember. People don't understand that. If not for Lunch and Letcher, Ellender wins that district last year. So Jesse Turner, great Ellender player. He played at Nichols. He's now at Covenant Christian, and he has those kids believing there. He has some really good up and coming players. Landon Winslow, that's a running back that you got to watch out for. He recently was named the best running back at the Nichols pro football camp, I think last week. Carson Aber, a good athlete, he might be their quarterback. Jaden Carter, who was an all-state basketball player, he transferred from Ellender to CCA this year. Jahari Carter and Bailey Streams, those guys are some really good, talented players. Covenant Christian traditionally hasn't made it been right there in the mix to compete for that district championship. Obviously, Vermilion Catholic is just out of this world, a consistent, great program. And the Central Catholic and Covenant Christian are two definite teams I would definitely keep my eye on. If Coach Turner can go in there and he can get those lines established, that's what it comes down to in small school football. It comes down to the offensive and defensive line a lot, because you can have some talent, but if you don't have the lines to, protect the talent and also the defensive lines to put pressure on a quarterback, it's really hard to win in 1A football in the playoffs. So, those are Covenant Christian, Central Catholic. Those are small programs I would definitely watch out for. Assumption is another one we can get to talk about. Assumption, it's in the middle of everything. You don't get a lot of attention a lot, but they're traditionally a good program. And HL Bourgeois, I really like what Coach Washington has there. And Thibodeau, it's just a mix of teams who I think can definitely surprise people this year. And I just can't focus on one, but I think all of those teams can definitely have great years. It's just gonna come down to health. And if they can just, when the big game comes, if they can make the plays when they need to move on in the playoffs against some really good competition in 3A, 4A, 5A, or maybe even 1A, that's what it's going to come down to. But I think it's going to be a great year of football on the Bayou, and if they can stay healthy, man. I know I keep mentioning health, but it seems like we've always had teams right there, but they always have a key injury sometime in the season that prevents them from doing a lot of great things in the playoffs. Really do like, what we have going on this year is a lot of momentum, and, I look forward to seeing all those teams play.
District 7-1A, you talked about Covenant Christian and Central Catholic some. What about Hanson Memorial and Centerville in that district?
And yeah, those are two really rich programs. I just talking to Centerville coach Charles Jefferson. He's a really, I covered him back in the day when he played at Assumption. Really good linebacker. and he's still building that program. That's still a relatively new program down there, but he's building it up. They got some nice facilities coming up. They got some good athletes who've always mostly just played basketball, but now they're getting them involved more in football. And Centerville is definitely a team I think that can compete with the Covenant Christians and the Central Catholics in that division. Hanson, I know they lost a lot of players from last year, but they're just a fundamentally strong program, and they may have small numbers, but you can't overlook them. That's some fun football. A lot of people think that it's just about the 5As and the 4As, but you look at the past years, they played good football and won. Those games go down to the wire, and they got some really good talent coming from those areas. So I don't know if Hanson and Centerville can compete for the district championships with the Vermilion Catholics or Central Catholics yet, but I think they can compete and make some fun games to watch in that small 1A district this season.
Get you out of here with this last question. Tell us about the Assumption Mustangs.
Yeah, Assumption. Yeah, that's one of my favorite programs. I'm a Morgan City guy.
Yeah.
And Morgan City and Assumption. I remember when Assumption was really good when they had Brandon Jacobs, and I was on the same floor playing against Brandon Jacobs and everything back in the day when they had Brandon and Shamon Williams, who played in Green Bay. And Assumption traditionally has always had good teams. They may not win 10 games a year, but they're always right there within the winning 5 games, 6 games, and they made the playoffs the last couple of years. They won district a couple of times before Letcher came in, and they played well against Letcher and a lot of those Vanderbilt. It's a war every Friday night against Vanderbilts and the Letchers, and with Assumption, Coach Will Broussard has definitely come in. This is his second year. He's familiar with the area. He's coached at South Lafourche and Thibodeau in the past. And some key players for Assumption to watch out for: Alfred Kennedy as a linebacker, defensive end; Brody Robichaud, good good linebacker and safety; and Reese Turner, who's going to be their quarterback. But he's a really good athlete who can definitely move around, get out the pocket, and make plays. They always have some really big offensive linemen. Jace Williams is another one. That's Jordan Mills' old school. Jordan Mills is an NFL offensive lineman right now.
Yes, Jordan Mills, good friend of mine. Yes.
So they've always produced really good linemen in Assumption Parish, and they don't get a lot of attention because Assumption is right there in the middle of everything, and it's right there. It's outside of Baton Rouge and New Orleans areas, and it's right above us. But they traditionally they one of the strong programs in the state. You see Brandon Jacobs, Shamon Williams. They've had some Kim Willoughby's in volleyball. They've had some really good talent come from there. So the spirit of Assumption football, the players, it's in their DNA. They know traditionally they're a good program. So Coach Broussard, if he can just get some good coaching staff, get some good coaches on that staff, they can make the most out of it. They were just right there in that district last year. The thing that killed them at the end was their inability to close out games. They played good for 3 quarters and then they just couldn't finish at the end. So if they can just find a way to finish games in a 4th quarter, last year they played Ellender to the overtime game, and Ellender won it at the end. Just find a way to finish the big games in district against Assumption, Letcher, and Vanderbilt. They can definitely compete in that district and make it to the playoffs again. So traditionally, that's one of our top programs, and you can't count the Mustangs because they have a lot of good players in that program, and I look forward to seeing them develop over the next year or so.
Most definitely. Chris Singleton, we thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. You've given us all the knowledge of the Bayou area teams. Definitely, man, we appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, no problem. Anytime, guys. I look forward to seeing you guys. Hopefully, I'll see you guys on the sideline for one. Hear you guys on the radio.
Definitely.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you, guys.
That was Chris Singleton. Let's get right into this right quick, guys. We're going to the big district. That is District, I want to say 758. That's correct. Destrehan, Harnville, East St. John, Terrebonne, H.L. Bourgeois, Thibodaux, Central Lafourche. I said Destrehan wins the district. We talked about that. But I really think this season, second place will come down between East St. John or Terrebonne, not Harnville. I think these two teams will put up a good fight for that district championship, just falling a little bit short of Destrehan. East St. John gave Destrehan a run for their money in the quarterfinals last year, losing by 1 point, going for the win on the 2-point conversion that they did not convert. Terrebonne's up and coming with a lot of talent, led by wide receiver Colin Billiard. George Peppers, what are your thoughts on who wins that district championship and who may come in second?
What's that old nature boy Ric Flair thing? To be the man, you got to beat the man.
Yeah,
That's her hand, correct?
that's right.
Listen, all right. And that being said, you mentioned East St. John. Good mention. Obviously a prime contender in is it 7-5-8? Yeah, it is. Um, they played that strand to a T in the quarters last year, but if I remember right, the regular season wasn't that game.
That's
If
right.
I remember right, the regular season, that strand put it on them. So
Yes.
which East St. John is going to show up? Here's the thing you have to ask yourself with that strand. They obviously are going to replace guys. I mean, John Eugene is going to be a tough replace, and they got other guys integral parts of their state championship team. They're still going to be plenty good. Anybody who wants to dismiss them at your own peril. But for second, you always, if you got a big favorite, it's an old horse racing accent. You're looking for a price. You're looking for a long shot. It's terrible in that long shot. And it relates and the novice's mind, people are going to look at that strand and say, yeah, they're the favorite and they're going to win it. I think that strand wins it, but they're going to make a misconception that Harville's going to bounce back. No, they're not. This is a team that's going to let you down this year. I have them nowhere in that district. They are going to let you down. That is an association. That is a group that thinks they're back. There's some slaps coming for them, and it ain't gonna be good. But for second, I'm stepping out. I really like what Coach Lewis has done with the Terrebonne Tigers, and I know one person that's gonna appreciate me picking Terrebonne second. That's Lori Lyons. She's a Terrebonne alumnus. Loves it. Loves Terrebonne. I mean, worships everything. Obviously, and look, we all love our alumni. All of us that went to our respective schools: Everett, Shaw, and St. Augustine. And Lori is a Terrebonne grad. I'm going with the Tigers VK to finish second, and East St. John to finish a solid third. I think those three teams are going to do very well. And I know I said that Strand wouldn't get back to the dome. I stand by that prediction. But if you just completely dismiss them, you're making a very potentially fatal mistake. I think they're a team that's going to get close, but they're not. But Terrebonne, second place in that in that district, is going to buy you a good spot in the playoffs.
Well, I gotta be third that emotion. I definitely agree that, we know Destrehan's going to be the favorite to win it. There's no doubt. I agree with all you. I think Terrebonne will step up this year and take another step. I think they're going to be second place. I think the Terrebonne East St. John game is going to be a huge, huge ball game.
Titanic.
Whoever wins that game,
Oh,
and I think it ain't just the fact of who finishes second place, but whoever finishes second place is going to have a nice playoff seed going forward.
top 10.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I'll say this. This district is one of the ones I've always kept an eye on, especially with my family going to Hornville High School. And I want to see this district flourish again, not just Destrehan, Hornville, and East St. John always running the district. I want every team in this district to be good and to be a challenge every week on that football field, to where we can once again proudly say this district here is one of the toughest in the state. We cannot say that right now about this district.
Nope.
We cannot say it at all. And to me, it's a shame that we are not saying that about this district. This is one of the most premier districts in the state at one time. And right now, it is nowhere near there. So to see a Terrebonne come up all of a sudden, to see East St. John coming back up because they were down for a couple of years. They're back up thanks to Brandon Browner. Marcus Scott has Destrehan sitting high and pretty still. It's wonderful to see. To see Hornville in this slump. This is not no. That's not supposed to be at Hornville. Hornville needs to be in the run-ins with the top teams, the Destrehan, the East St. John's. So they need to come back up. But this whole district as a whole can come back up. It is better for that district, and it's also better for the state. Do you agree, George Peppers?
I agree. And let me add this to your argument. It used to be, once upon a time, you could get to Hanville if you were the visiting team. You were like, uh-oh. That isn't. And look, I have covered high school football. I have gone to the river parishes. We all have. But you used to get to Hanville and you're thinking, if man, I hate to be them dudes coming off the bus on the visitor side because it's going, in the words of the great Lawrence Taylor, son, it's going to be a long night. The sack video they show of him hitting Ken O'Brien of the Jets, that video. That was the epitome of what the road teams face going down to Hanville. There's no intimidation down there now. And why? Here's the question we have to ask. Why has Hanville fallen? What? I mean, could we be speculative? No. Can we delve in facts? Absolutely. They don't have the same caliber of athletes that Destrehan does. Simple as that. Name me one monster recruit that Harville has had in the last 5 to 10 years. A guy that you were like, holy cow, I gotta go see this dude. The
Puka.
Darius Reynos from back in the day. You don't know, you don't see that.
Just
You
Puka.
don't see that. I
Puka the
mean,
last.
Puka, exactly, except for Puka. Who? I mean, that's one dude. And if you're just naming one dude, there's your problem. You're not getting them dudes over there in Harville anymore. These other schools are cherry picking. And Destrehan, look, Marcus Scott's the head of the table. As simple as that. I mean, for lack of a better term, that's that. But Harville's fall is a precipitous fall. It is not fair to the river parishes. It is not right. And I say that not in a prejudicial sense, VK. I say that in the sense of, yeah, outside of Puka, nobody else, Reggie. But outside, I'm not saying it in a biased type of a tone. What I'm saying is, as a prep football guy, that rivalry game, I'll put it up there with some of the best in the state. And ain't nobody can argue me down on that. If you try, not now, I won't. But I'm saying back in the day, not 5, 10 years ago, dude, Destiny and Harville was must see. It's like,
Yes.
when did they play? Week 8? Oh, we there. When are they playing this game? Destiny? Okay, cool. We go to Harville? Great. Harville has the great pyro, with the LSU fight song. That's what visiting teams have to see every week going down that way. That ain't scary to go down there now. Just
It,
saying every day.
it's like this when it comes to Destrehan and Hornville. When the rivalry was at its peak, especially with Coach Robichaud, who was coaching Destrehan, and Coach Valden, who was coaching at Hornville. The
Mm-hmm.
rivalry was at its peak. When you had people around the whole track, the fence around the
Yep.
track, people
Yep.
standing around the track, if it was at Destrehan or Hornville,
Didn't
you
matter.
had close, you had close to 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Close to 10,000 people at the game. And most of them were standing room only. That said a lot about that rivalry at the time.
Yep.
People were tailgating, people, they even had adults that would fight each other, which to me was just crazy. They were just crazy. Adults fight each other at the game. Come on now. Y'all know better than that. Look, Reggie is right. Reggie used to get there at 4 o'clock just for that game. I would meet my T Marty at her house at 4 o'clock, and she would take that 5-minute ride from her house to Hornville. And we are at Hornville at 4 o'clock in the steaming, hot, beaming sun, waiting for this game to start at 7 o'clock. Now,
Facts.
all of a sudden, you cannot even call Destrehan and Hornville a rivalry because Hornville cannot beat them. They cannot beat them. They have not beat them since Puka's senior year, which was 2017. They can't beat them. It's not a rivalry. And the past 2 years, people are telling me there are seats for people to come in and sit down at in the stadiums. That's not how it's supposed to be with Harville and Destrehan. Not at all. You got the West Bank of St. Charles and the East Bank of St. Charles meeting up, and everybody's supposed to be there. When you ain't got people showing up, there's a problem. And I know the Hornville fan base, yeah, Reggie, it was always awesome. Those always, without a doubt. But right now, the Hornville fan base are not happy with what they're seeing. They are unhappy. They are not used to seeing Hornville like this. They're not used to seeing Hornville down, getting beat, getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. Those people not used to that. Not at all. That's supposed to be a winning team who's supposed to make a deep run every year with the talent that they have. Hornville was always getting to the quarterfinals. That's a deep run. Like they say, if you get to the quarterfinals in Louisiana high school football, that means you're supposed to be there. That's a deep run in the quarterfinals. Hornville right now, it hurts me to see that. Because, you know, like I said, my family went there. My dad won a state championship on a football team. And it just hurts to see that because I know I didn't go, but I do feel a part of Hornville. Family, a lot of friends. I feel a part of it. And to see it the way it is, man, it hurts. It hurts. Just like when Shaw was down after the 09 season for all these years, it hurt because that's my school. It hurts knowing that's not Shaw football. In Hornville, it hurts. They supposed to be winning. They supposed to be one of these premier powerhouses in the state, and they're not. And that's a shame. And something has to be done. VK, I know you want to say something, man. I'm sorry.
No. You good. You saying how you feel. You good. You good. You have pride in that place. You know, I have some family members on my mama's side that are from there and everything else that came from that.
Your mom knew my grandfather.
Wow.
She was at his funeral.
Okay.
Came right up to me. He said, "I'm Vashon mama." Hugged her and everything. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. But besides all that, you know, yeah, like, you know, it used to be a great. You look at Bowden and you look at Robichaux, but then you go back to Rebo and Darren Bobbier.
Oh yeah.
That was a hell of a rivalry then. But all of a sudden, we ain't see a downfall of Hornville since Scott Hildebrand. We have not seen a downfall since then. And that's a long time. And this is worse more than anything else. And you look at a time like, you know, well, you know, like George is talking about, you know, I hate to be the other team to come off the bus going to Tiger Stadium, except when you're from St. Aug.
He had to get that in there.
I'm sorry. We were the most successful road team.
They were. He's not lying. He's telling the truth.
We was 2. We should be 3-0. 3-0 in that place, not 2-1. Hornville was very fortunate to get that win. St. Aug was up 35-6. We were supposed to win, and they came back and got them. But at the same time, 2-1 in that stadium. And the first time, now still didn't forget it, that was my birthday. The quarterfinals, Wayne Guidry, 2 field goals, 40-something yards, 6-0. Crowd going crazy. St. Aug scores 28 straight. And all of a sudden, St. Aug up 35-6 into the third quarter. Everybody leaves the stadium. We gave Hornville the ultimate baptism. Welcome to 5A. Welcome to 5A. They won't stay the next year. I give them that. But at the same time, hey, we come there to fight, and that's what it is. But we respect Hornville's program. But besides all that, this rivalry is now not a rivalry. This reminds me so much. Yes, it was 42 straight, but I'm talking about there was 28 straight points in the second quarter to go up 28-6 at the half. That started the run. But besides all that, it's not the rivalry when it is. It kind of reminds you a little bit of Miami and Florida State. How much that rivalry is not what it is. But it's a good comparison.
It is.
It's not the rivalry what it used to be. It's like Nebraska, Oklahoma's not the rivalry that it used to be. You know what I'm saying? Texas Oklahoma is starting to get back to it a bit. But all these rivalries is not what it used to be right now. This is not the best rivalry. Right now, the best rivalry in the state is I can see two rivalries that are really the best right now. Is probably Jesuit Holy Cross and also St. Thomas, and it's probably a new rivalry. St. Thomas More and Lafayette Christian.
The new rivalry. Yeah,
That's the
definitely.
new rivalry that's been doing unbelievable. Those right now are the two best rivalries in the state: Jesuit Holy Cross and Lafayette Christian St. Thomas More. This is not good of a, and I feel, I hate to say this, I'm just like I'm saying with Miami. I feel sorry for Miami. I feel sorry for Hineville. You know what I'm saying? What makes a rivalry when you win as well, not taking beatings every year. A rivalry is not losing 5 straight years and all this other stuff and all. A rivalry is you win one year, you win the other. You win one year, you win the other. Or if you win 2 in a row, they'll win 2 in a row. Or they'll win 2, they win 1 in the middle. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that's how rivalries should be. Like they talked about St. Aug. That's not a rivalry because some way, somehow, in those two teams, there's been winning streaks in between each other. Now the
Yep.
games have been a little closer now, but over the years, it's been kind of one-sided. So trust me, I would love to see Hineville Dexter and get back the way it is, but right now, this is not a good state of what Hineville football is right now. It's ugly, and and I don't know how it's going to recover. But they I'll tell you one thing, it does not look good up in Boutique, not in St. Charles Parish, because that school is amazing, and
Mhm.
especially how they expanded and put their money where their mouth is at the school. But for the football program to take a dip and dive, that is ugly.
You, you know, Harville's fan base, and I'll speak from personal experience as a journalist. I've gone to Harville, and we have all have gone in that capacity. Those dudes, look, there's a reason we got expanding waistlines. They'll offer you food, like tailgates, pregame. That jambalaya, you talk about St. James's, jambalaya is great. Them dudes in Harville, dude, their food game is on point. Fact.
Yeah.
Big fact. And I remember me and my brother, we would go to Hahnville and we covered Hahnville Destrehan. And we were there early. I was like, dude, we got to get there to catch a good parking spot early. Get there 5:30 for a 7 o'clock kickoff. Get there. They're like, man, y'all from New Orleans? Yeah. Come get some of this food, man. We got a lot. Oh, okay, cool. That was our dinner. They'd hook us up with a bowl of jambalaya. And it was like, man, we good. You know, knock it down with a Coke and you straight. But Hahnville, the answer to your question, VK, about why this program has fallen, simple. An administration that, quite frankly, doesn't give a rip about anything about that program. They are allowing people to, well, and look, I'm gonna take this a little deeper. They are allowing some idiots, and they're not standing up for their own faculty, their own coaching staff. And I'm not talking football. You know where I'm going. Talking about the young lady that's taken over the basketball program. There have been people that have said some barbaric things about that woman, and Harnville has not stepped in to shut them people down. Their admins have not stepped in to back this woman. That is a crying shame. Big and yeah, I'm calling you out. Yes, sir. On your admins at Harnville, I'm calling all of y'all t-shirts out. Cut the nonsense. Step up. Defend your people. Oh, by the way, your football program stinks because of the people running it. I say it. I say it. I mean, their football program is in bad hands. And until that changes, we see none of this rivalry again.
VK, you brought up a good point. Maybe we could have a segment one day on the show. The best rivalries in the state of Louisiana. I think we got a lot we can name.
Oh, I'll give you one.
Yes.
Give me
I'll
one.
give you one for years, for years. And this is back in my days of high school. And look, maybe this sounds a little biased, but John Eric West Jeff used to play some humdingers back in the day. And
Back in the day.
the talent bases on both rosters are D1 laden. There were D1 there were coaches, scouts, and everybody, you can name anybody that was going to that game back in the 80s into the 90s, now into the 2000s, into this millennium. Everett has owned this rivalry. Quite frankly, I can't think the last time West Jefferson has beaten John Everett on the football field. Maybe in other sports, but football is where we're at. You know,
Crutchfield didn't get a
and
win against Everett. Crutchfield?
what, what's that?
No, no, no. That was
No.
No,
that was
Okay.
Cyril
Scott.
didn't beat us. No,
He
Michael
got
he was
Marcus
there.
Scott is
What?
the last one.
okay.
He was there 2 years. We came still
2 years.
Crutchfield.
Two
2 years,
years.
right? They didn't get us. No, and like I said, I can't think the last time. I'm gonna have to do some digging to see. But
That was Marcus Scott. Marcus Scott's last
well,
year.
yeah, but that was the game that Mike Strom and I were on the sideline covering the game, and an official made an egregious, horrible spot call in that game, and it cost Eric. That's the last time we lost to West Jeff. Since then, we've pretty much owned them, and that's another discussion for another day as far as why that rivalry has gone by the wayside as it has. Quite frankly, Eric's rivalry is with Chalmette because that team has taken the mantra as 8-5A. But I don't know. And if I feel like I'm seeing in a biased sense, I'm sorry about Eric. I went there for 4 years. I know everything about that rivalry and what it's supposed to be. That ain't a rivalry either. And if you're talking about best rivalries in the state, St. James Ledger doesn't make the list.
St. James Lusher does make the list. I'm just popping up examples. That's one.
Yeah, I mean, I get
Uh,
it.
St. Aug in 35. That
Battle of the
has
Bands.
become that not just battle of the bands. That has become a better rivalry
Yep.
than anything else. And I'm gonna tell you why. The person that's going in the Greater New Orleans Hall of Fame, Wayne Reese,
Posthumously. Yep.
when he came to McDonough 35,
Yep.
that changed the rivalry. That
What's up,
changed
Mick?
the rivalry big time. So for him getting in at 35, that's when 35 started to turn the game up, started to win. And at one time they beat St. Aug 6 straight years. So it's just the
Hmm.
fact they started to catch up. Another rivalry, a meet and
Kentwood.
Kentwood. And with a meets Kentwood. That is a great rivalry in itself.
Hmm.
And another rivalry that's starting to come up and rising is Carver 35. That is starting to be a very good ball game. It's been close ball games the last 4 years, as now it's the Wayne Reese Classic. We done a classic one last year that came down to a 4th and 11, and Santana Price connected, and then two plays later, he throws a 48-yard bomb for the winner. So there have been some interesting rivalries, and I hate to say it, they're better than Hanville Destro.
I'm gonna say this: this rivalry can pick back up for real. It can pick back up if Shaw wins this year, and that's the megaphone game against Rummel. Shaw is better. Shaw had a winning record, lost to Rummel by 15 last year. If
Hmm.
Shaw can win this year, now the megaphone game is being talked about again. Since Shaw was snapped the losing streak. Now we
How
can say,
many years
okay,
has it
maybe
been?
that's back.
I say it could be talked about if they do win, but I think they'll talk about it more if Shaw wins this year and next year. They have catching up to do. They have a lot of
He's
catching
putting
up to
that
do.
pressure on your alma mater, Jared.
I'm telling
Either
this.
he
I'm
being
telling the
real.
truth.
Yeah, he
I
being
know,
real.
It's
but
just
let me say this.
it's just like with St. Aug Rumble all that time, like Jay Roth winning 12 freaking straight, and we got them. We were humble. We got this, but we know we got to get them again. Go ahead, George.
No, I was going to say about adding to Jared's point about Shaw Rumble. Hank Tooney did not come back to some 1,000 Salesian court
Right.
to to just show up. There's two things on his ledger. Beat Rummel to get the megaphone back on the West Bank because Rummel was look as classy as the Raider program has been. They've got some that have been barking and talking about, yeah, I'm never gonna get this megaphone back. Jared, I know I'm right. You know I'm right. They've been talking a lot of yin yang, talking about Shaw ain't never gonna beat us, ain't never gonna beat us. Yeah, better watch what y'all ask for. Shaw
Look, they
coming this year. And they're gonna bring, you know what, the butt whipping. They're gonna bring a butt whipping. I think this is the year the megaphone comes back. to 1,000 Salesian. And the other thing, obviously, for Hank coming back at the age of 70, hey, any posterity, he's trying to get back to New Orleans and win Shaw a state title. What would be epic this year for Shaw? Get to the dome, but you're going to run into one of them gorillas. Lafayette Christian, St. Thomas more than likely. And Shaw will be a decided underdog in that game if it's LC with Jawan Johnson. Y'all don't have, if y'all team from last year was playing this year with David Kinsey, I think Shaw would stand a puncher's chance because you got the breakaway speed and the explosiveness of him. Now he's playing a straight at Penn State. Look, there's a lot to look forward to this year. Shaw Rummel obviously is one. When we and VK were talking about the game list, we were looking at games week to week, just perusing. Hint. Um, guess what game was not in that list? Destra and Harville. I don't remember saying anything about that
Week
game
four.
to you.
Week
Huh?
four.
Yeah, week four. But I'm saying, we were going through a week to week chronological list, and VK and I, it was a 2.5 hour conversation going through that list because there's a lot of games to choose from to watch. And Destra and Harville was not on there to us. I don't know about you, Jared, but to us, we were like, why? That's going to be a one sided. That's going to be a one sided behind whipping. Just saying. Until things change at Houndville, that's a beatdown. And look, I'd love for that rivalry to be restored. I would because it's good
Yo
for high
would.
school football. It's good for high school football. Doggone it. I mean, I don't want to see that's. I mean, look, much love to Marcus Scott. Much, much, much love. But dude, y'all own that rivalry. Y'all straight own that rivalry. And Hornville is the little sister of Boutique. That's all they are until things change. When? Who knows?
I'll say this. I'll say about another rivalry, and I'm gonna get back to the Bayou areas right quick. Another rivalry that I would like to see amp up again. That has gone down. A lot of people don't talk about the Barb Acadiana rivalry from that area, and I witnessed a Barb and Acadiana playoff game. And I got there early with some family from Lake Charles, and people were talking, and they were just telling me about the rivalry between the two. And I never knew there was that much of a rivalry. Man, you talk about two areas that don't like each other,
Mm,
it's real. Barb and Acadiana.
I
Right now,
believe it.
Barb is not where it used to be. If Barb can get back up and make some challenges towards Acadiana in games, that rivalry can come back.
I think another one that that's trying to get closer and closer than anything else, despite it being one sided. But every year the game has been close. Has been Holy Cross and Chalmette. We know that Holy Cross has been really one sided in this rivalry, but every year this game has been very, very close. You know what I'm saying? So will it be the year Chalmette finally get them? I don't know. The game is back in Chalmette this year, but at the same time, it's been a lot of competitive games. Very few of those games have been one sided. So that's one rivalry. Hopefully, it's getting there, but hopefully, it will get back to what it was, and that's Holy Cross and Chalmette. Another rivalry that needs to get back to what it was. You talked about Acadian and Barb. Well, trying to think. I believe hmm, well
I'll
shoot.
give I'll give you one VK if you're struggling. I'm
There
gonna
you
pick
go.
up the
Yeah.
ball here.
Go.
No, no,
Pick
no,
up the
no,
ball.
because I have a feeling I know where he wants to go, and I'm trying to read his mind. He's going up north, and this is a rivalry of two teams that perennially played for state titles, but neither of them have been in the dome for a little minute. West Monroe Evangel used to the Glotty Classic, the Hap Glotty Classic was feature those two teams in very prominent spots. I don't think they ever played each other. They played our area, Shaw, Curtis.
Sean
They
Curtis.
played
Yeah,
Shaw
yeah,
and who?
yeah. Sean Curtis. They it was
Yeah,
2 years
Shaw
in a
Curtis.
row. Yeah, they
But
flipped.
they've played each other plenty. And that
Yes.
was a rivalry. Now, the one game none of us have mentioned, and until one team beats the other, I don't call this a rivalry. Yes, they played some close games. Car Easton. Easton hasn't beaten Carr yet, and until they do,
Been a
I'm
very
not
long
putting it.
time. Yeah, very long
It
time.
has. If and when and once they do, we can call it a rivalry. But the rivalry is by definition what? If each team wins and the pattern flips the script. Easton
Yes.
hasn't flipped anything except pancakes. They have not beaten Carr yet. They got to get that W, and they play each other this year. I forget what week, but
Week
they do
three.
play each other this year, week 3. So that is going to be an obviously a Titanic showdown. And I'm wondering who else. Let me see. We said it made Kentwood, St. James, Lutcher,
West St.
35.
John and St.
There you
James.
go.
Another
West
one.
There
St.
you
John,
go.
St. James. And West St. John, they have not beaten St. James in a long time since the renewal of that. They call it the Railroad Rivalry, the
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Railroad Classic. And it
Hmm.
was basically AKA the Robert Valdez Classic. They haven't West St. John has not won since the first year Robert Valdez was the head coach at West St. John before he left. So it's basically his classic, but now St. James has won, I believe, 6 straight in the series. They did not play. I think they did not play last season because of a storm or something coming through. I don't know. I know they haven't. I know they haven't played. I don't think they have not played in 2 years. So now, more than anything else, they're going to play this year. Deron Thomas is the new head coach at West St. John, and looks like, looking at his staff and looking like what they're trying to do, he's going to try to get West St. John back in the right direction. I don't know if they're going to beat St. James this season, but I think he's going to get them ready for St. James, expecting that to be a good team. They expect that team to step up.
Let's get back to the Bayou area right quick. District 83A, Edie White, Patterson, St. James, Donaldsonville, and Berwick. We talked to Lamar and we mentioned that more than likely Edie White and St. James are going to battle once again for that district championship. Edie White won the district championship last year. Do you think, VK, that Edie White repeats or St. James gets it done this year?
St. James wins the district. This is their year. This is the first time in 2 years they're going to host them. Like I said, Ed White's a good team. Kyle is saying no disrespect. Great coach, has done a great job with the program, but they're going to be younger this year. And St. James has a good bit of experience. And those seniors, they they're gonna be ready. They play a tough schedule in itself, and it's gonna prepare them for week 10. And them seniors waiting on that senior night for a long time, that they're gonna have them Cardinals in their house now. So it's gonna be close. Don't get me wrong. Edie White's gonna bring the lumber, but I think St. James wins the war and wins the district championship.
George Peppers, what are your thoughts? The St. James,
In
St. James or Edie White?
you're talking about E3A, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's throw this out there. Edie White plays a very physical brand of football. It is tough to beat. But as VK astutely points out and correctly points out, this is a younger football team. And now they got to go to Vacherie. Um, that's not an easy place to play.
No.
It's in the middle of nowhere, quite frankly, because there's a lot of woods around that football stadium. It's not a metroplex or nothing like that. You get in there and it's like, I don't know if they build a woodshed there, but they may build one for Edie White, especially week 10. And I love Kyle Lacine and what he's done. I think he's an outstanding coach. He was a heck of a player, Kyle Lacine at Edie White. And he has brought the physicality that they play every year. It's going to be a blood and guts war down there. I don't think it's a whitewash. I think St. James does win it. I think they will win the district, and I think this is a team that's going to position themselves to make a very deep, elongated run into the postseason that may very well find them in the Caesar Superdome. It's a real chance. And you mentioned the other teams in there. I don't want to say that we're dogging on them or nothing, but they don't have the resources and they don't have the temerity or the numbers to fool with these two teams here. I think it's these two teams and strictly these two. But St. James, I'm like VK. I think this is the Wildcats' time, and they get it done in Week 10 this year.
I'm going to go with St. James also. I think they'll get it done this year also. And looking at this schedule, let me just say the schedule for St. James. August 17th, fall scrimmage against Hornville at St. James. Jamboree, August 25th at East St. John. They play Vanderbilt Catholic in the Jamboree. Then they host East St. John September 1st. They go to West St. John a week later. September 15th, they go to Thibodaux. September 22nd, Assumption. September 29th, they host Woodlawn. October 6th, they host Lake Charles College Prep. October 13th, they start district. They go to Patterson. October 20th, Donaldsonville goes to them. October 27th, they go to Berwick. And then November 3rd for week 10, they host E.D. White. Guys, that's a tough schedule. With the Hornville, the East St. John, Vanderbilt Catholic, West St. John gonna play them hard. Woodlawn and Lake Charles College Prep. That is a tough schedule. Look, I got St. James winning the district this year, especially at home on senior night. I don't see it. Go ahead.
Now, Reggie was saying West St. John barely filling the team. Reggie, that's not true. I know a couple people that's on the coaching staff now at West St. John, and they're bringing in some kids and everything else. Deron Thomas is a huge name. He's originally from Edgard before he even went to East St. John. He started going to school at West St. John before he transferred to East St. John. So plain and simple, he's very familiar with the area. And I'll tell you what, I give West St. John at least 2 to 3 years. They're going to be back up. They got new administration and everything in West St. John. They look like the way it's looking, they're trying to go to the right direction. So I am not counting out West St. John. You know what I'm saying? If they would have had, I ain't gonna lie, they took a big time seat back, especially what happened with Hurricane Ida. But at the same time, now they're bringing in new administration, new people to try to get West St. John back in the right direction. I think we're not going to write this. I don't think I'm going to write this West St. John team off, especially with a Deron Thomas running the program.
All right. There you have it. I'm waiting for Reggie to respond. Reggie's family is from West St. John area.
oh yeah. He posts a lot. He got a lot of family. I think he's related to a couple of people from my church. So yeah, his family's deep.
Yeah. Everybody.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
You sure you're good?
I'm good. I'm not about to respond. I see you said something.
Oh no.
All right. So we thank everybody for tuning in. We thank Chris Singleton for joining us on the show today. Oh, I think he said something. His parents' alma mater. And he also says they don't have the numbers in the area. We'll let y'all two come back on and debate that on another show. We'll let y'all do that on another show. Come back on and debate that. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to Chris Singleton for joining us. We are coming back August 2nd. We're going to have Jimmy Watson from the Shreveport Times join us. He's going to tell us about the areas, the high school football programs in the Shreveport area. August 3rd, we are finally hitting home, the New Orleans area. And our special guest for that day is Ken Trahan. We're going to have him on for a good bit. We'll get him going at 7 o'clock, and we might have him on until 8:30 because we got a lot to talk about in our area. So Ken Trahan, August 3rd, the New Orleans area, our home. Before we go, I'm going to ask y'all this question. Shreveport area, in your opinion now, who is the best team out there? VK, you go first.
Best team in the Shreveport area?
Shreveport area.
That's a good question, man. I'm not gonna lie. The best team out there to me, Calvary Baptist.
He says Calvary Baptist. George Peppers.
I can make that argument with Calvary. What about North Carolina?
He said
Got to
no.
the Superdome last year. I mean, those dudes, and they got Dennis done. They play. We're close. They played. Did they not play much or close in that championship
They
game?
did. They did. I ain't gonna
You
lie.
mean
No, and
you mean North DeSoto?
North DeSoto.
North Dakota.
No,
That's what I meant to say. I said Caddo. What
North.
the heck
No,
am I saying? Caddo. Really? North Dakota. All right. Yikes. Little slippage there. But North Dakota with Dennis Dunn. They showed you, and they owned Lutcher for a couple of quarters in that championship game last year until that game turned on what? A Lutcher turnover. Defensive mistake by North DeSoto that turned the Bulldog. And Winfield just did his thing in the second half, and they just wore him down. North DeSoto's going to be back. We said this week, and I in the press box, that team is not here on a 1 year flash. They're going to be back. They got a shot at it. And I think that's a team we better pay attention to. And that's one of the teams I'm curious to ask Jimmy Watson about. I also, obviously, to me, I want to ask him about Evangel West Monroe. Why have they fallen? Because Evangel was the big dogs of Shreveport for a long time. Won how many state titles? 6, 7,
Lot,
something like that.
whole
They
lot.
did. They won a lot. They won a lot. But they announced themselves as a prominent team. They played De La Salle of Concord. That's how good they got, Evangel.
Exactly.
De La Salle, when they had, what would they win, 100 and something in a row? They
Yeah.
weren't, and people thought Evangel was the street buster. That was going to be the street buster because they run the 5 wides. Nope, they got embarrassed.
Yep.
That doesn't mean anything. But the fact that they own Louisiana, I remember the first time I saw Evangel play was in 1994 against West St. John in the Superdome. And Laurie DuPont had no clue what to do. His team was resilient, but that 5 wide offense gave a lot of teams eccentric headache number 219. A lot. I mean, just, look, 5 wide offenses in Louisiana? Come on, man. That's not a novelty. That's a rarity. A lot of teams, but now, with teams changing to different styles, the veer, I'm old school. I like power football. I mean, spreading the ball out is cute, but power football gets you the ring. But I mean, I'm looking for, and then Kenny on Thursday. My goodness, you talk about we're going to have to set an over under and how long. And VK and I have done this 17 years, and I've never, not once, been the dude to interview Ken Trahan. We get that chance next Thursday. VK, I don't think you've ever interviewed him, or have you? Because I haven't.
I have interviewed him before. You know
It's
what
a
I'm saying?
different seat, though, isn't it?
Yeah, very much.
And the knowledge and the dearth of knowledge that he has, guys. I don't know Jimmy Watson. I'll straight tell y'all, but I'm looking forward to that. But Kenny, we work with him, and that man's knowledge is endless, endless. And dude, he may tell you about why Grace King and Bonneville always struggle with Grace King's clothes now. Well, no, they didn't know how. And Reggie's saying he's right. Nobody knew how to debate Evangel. The one title that Evangel won, they should have lost. And I'll leave it at this. And look, I'm thinking of our good and late friend Rick Gailey when St. James went for 2 VK on that Friday night, lost by one doggone point, 28-27. And they outplayed Evangel that night. And they got the score they needed, but they couldn't get the conversion. That's the one title Evangel shouldn't have won. And they did.
And everybody thought, why you went for 2? And I'm like, when you look at it,
Right move.
you you,
Right move.
you don't blame him for doing that. That's the same thing John
Nope.
Shiles did in that close game against Evangel, and he said, "Forget this, we're going for the win.
And he lost.
We ain't about to take you to overtime." So I like it
Nope.
when coaches go for the win. Like I was saying, best team in Shreveport is Calvary Baptist. Best team in the overall North Louisiana is Ruston. Bottom line.
I'm gonna say this is we talk about Shreveport. I know you love your Rustin. You had to get that in there. I know. And then,
Yeah, just slip that in. PSA.
yeah, that's but we're going to the Shreveport area because
Right.
Rustin's a whole hour away and they're closer to Monroe. But and we're talking the best teams. I think there's gonna be some Shreveport teams that's gonna surprise us this year. I really think so. Reggie, he said Bird might be the best team. You put a question mark there, but I think North DeSoto and I think Northwood Shreveport also. You can't forget about
Yep.
Northwood.
They were a high seed.
Yes, you can't forget about them. I think those are your 2 best, in my opinion, I think Calvary Baptist is coming up, got a good quarterback, and they got a good quarterback coming in as a freshman. The question is, will that guy wait 3 years for his turn to start? That's the only question. His name is Peyton Houston, and he is talked about as this next big thing. Will he wait 3 years for his time, or will he transfer somewhere else to play? That's a question. But look, I think North DeSoto, I think Northwood Shreve, and I also think Calvary Baptist is up and coming. But I think we're going to talk about some Shreveport teams this year that's going to turn some heads. I really believe that.
Absolutely.
So, yes, Reggie, Evangeline versus Hornville was awesome in 2003 for the 5A championship. Yes, it was. It was definitely awesome, and it's still one of the biggest wins ever in there, just knowing the powerhouse of Evangel got beat. That team that was led by Jacob Hester.
And also the change with the Northern Louisiana teams dominating and the South was coming back.
Correct.
But before we shut it down,
of course,
2 quick things. and we gotta say this because we cannot forget this. A big congratulations going out to Lori Lyons being inducted to the Louisiana Sports
Yes,
Writing
sir.
Hall of Fame. Congratulations,
Yes, sir.
Lori Lyons,
Mhm.
from us from the Hash It Out Show. We definitely appreciate your hard work. We will try to have you on the show soon. But very nice lady. She really has worked hard, and right now she's teaching, but at the same time, she always, once in a while, she'll cover a game or something like that. But also the wife of Marty Luquette. So big ups to Lori Lyons going to the Louisiana Sports Writers Hall of Fame, and also a big congratulations going to the legend of New Orleans. Wayne Reese has been inducted to the Greater New Orleans Foundation's Hall
About time.
of Fame.
About
So
time.
congratulations going to Coach Wayne Reese and his family. Shout out to his daughter Mila, that I know very well, and also his son Wayne Reese Jr. and the Reese family. I talked with them last year after the Wayne Reese Classic. Very great people, and we miss him, and this is well earned. Congratulations. Rest in peace, Wayne Reese.
well said, my friend. Well said, most
Yep.
definitely. Most definitely. We'll see y'all Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, with Jimmy Watson from the Shreveport Times discussing the Shreveport area high school football teams. From my co-hosts VK Jones and George Peppers, I am JB, your sports guy. We'll see y'all on Wednesday, and y'all take care.